With the Republican National Convention opening in Cleveland in less than 2 weeks, the party's presumptive presidential nominee, Donald Trump, is facing a new round of controversies. On Saturday, his campaign tweeted an image showing Hillary Clinton, a pile of $100 bills and 6-pointed stars shaped like the Star of David, along with the words "most corrupt candidate ever." The tweet immediately drew criticism for being anti-Semitic. Trump later deleted the tweet, then retweeted the same image, but with the star replaced by a circle. The original image, shared by the presumptive Republican presidential candidate, came from a Twitter user whose feed includes a number of violent and offensive images of African Americans, Muslims, and immigrants. This comes as the Council on American Islamic Relations is warning Donald Trump's comments are putting Muslim women in danger after his comments last week at a town hall when he was questioned by a supporter about Muslims working for the TSA.
Just to mix quickly, Homeland Security and jobs. Why aren't we putting our military retirees on that border or in TSA? Get rid of all these heebie-jobbies they wear at TSA. Well, I've seen them myself. I understand. We need the veterans back in there to take it. They've fought for this country and defended it. They'll still do it.
Okay.
Thank you.
You know, and we are looking at that. We're looking at a lot of things.
At that same town hall in New Hampshire, Donald Trump joked about Mexico attacking the United States.
Mexico, and I respect Mexico, I respect their leaders. What they've done to us is incredible. Their leaders are so much smarter, so much sharper, and it's incredible. In fact, that could be a Mexican plane up there. They're getting ready to attack.
We turn now to part 2 of our in-depth look at Donald Trump. Last week, Democracy Now!'s Juan Gonzalez and I visited Wayne Barrett, considered the preeminent journalist on Donald Trump. He's been tracking Trump for decades. His 1991 biography of Donald Trump was just republished as an e-book with the title Trump, the Greatest Show on Earth, the Deals, the Downfall, the Reinvention. On Thursday, we aired part 1 of the interview. Today, we bring you part 2 for the hour. We visited Wayne Barrett at his home. He talked about Trump's longtime lawyer and mentor, Roy Cohn, who once served as a top aide to the red-baiting Senator Joseph McCarthy.
I knew Roy Cohn. I knew him very well. And you just cannot understand how Donald could have been this close. I wrote in the book that they talked 15 times a day. One of the 2 stories here, I can't remember which one, said it was 5 times a day. It's probably somewhere in between. Roy himself told me they talked 15 times a day. But there's no question that next to Fred Trump, Roy Cohn was the single greatest influence in Donald's life. And Roy is incandescent evil. I mean, I would sit with him and it was enough to make you rush back to church, the satanic feeling that he would give you. He would eat with his fingers. And we would be at 21. He would eat with his fingers. He carried a little glass in his jacket that he would take out and drink in this little glass. He would pop a white pill when he didn't think you were looking. And his house was filled with frogs. He was the weirdest guy. He was into the strangest stuff. He was a chicken hawk after little boys, and yet he was the most virulently anti-gay guy you could imagine. And so that was Donald's mentor and constant sidekick, who represented all 5 of the organized crime families in the city of New York.
For young people who don't know Roy Cohn's background back to McCarthy, can you explain who he is and what it meant for Donald Trump to learn at his knee?
Yeah, well, he starts out as, I think he was 23 years old when he was the chief counsel of Joe McCarthy, doing all those hearings. He was extremely wired into the Reagan White House. He helped make Donald Trump's sister, Mary Ann, a federal judge in 1983. He was the ultimate fixer, power player in New York for a whole period of time. He died of AIDS in 1986, but for a particular block of time, he was extremely influential with the Beam administration, because even more so than Fred Trump, he was totally wired into Abe Beam because he had knocked Mario Biaggi out of the race. Mario Biaggi was a very popular, charismatic congressman from the Bronx, and Roy leaked that he had been before a federal grand jury. And initially, Biaggi denied it, and ultimately it was established that he had been, and that's why he couldn't run. And that was Roy getting Biaggi out of the race for Beam. So Beam was incredibly beholden to him. So he had enormous influence in the city underground. I would write stories about his parking lots. Strangely enough, his cash cow was city-owned parking lots by the water, which were leased by the Bureau of Marine and Aviation, and he controlled the companies that had the parking lots that were city-owned, and it was just an enormous amount of money. He never paid any taxes. He pretended to have no income. He had an incredible cash empire. And the guy who actually leased those parking lots to him, Rick Mazzeo, wound up under federal investigation, and they found his body in the trunk of a car. And all he did was give parking lots to Roy Cohn. That's what he did for a living. And so you just look at as I said, he was the middleman between Donald and all these mob guys. You asked about the apartments at Trump Tower. John Cody gets an apartment at Trump Tower. John Cody is a Gambino crime family associate who I had lunch with while I was doing the book. I had lunch with him at Windows on the World. And
on top of the World Trade Center.
Yes, and it must have been under federal surveillance, because 2 weeks after the lunch, they busted him for trying to kill the guy, Bobby Sasso, who had taken over Local 282, which was his union that was the concrete delivery men. They delivered all the concrete to all the sites in New York, totally mob-controlled. And so they busted him for trying to kill the guy. He had already been in jail. He goes back to jail. Well, he denied it was a mistress, but he certainly told me that they were very close. Verena Hickson, I talk about her in the book. She got not only an apartment in Trump Tower, it's the only apartment with a pool. It's right underneath Donald's apartment, right? And all of it built for John Cody, because Trump Tower is a total concrete structure. It was the first concrete structure like that built in New York. So John Cody had complete control over this. So he gets this apartment. He actually invested in the apartment himself, as I established in the book. And Verena Hickson is there, who I met with a few times. She used to meet me in Central Park. She didn't want to meet me in Trump Tower, but we talked many times. And, and there's John hanging out in Trump Tower all the time, right underneath Donald Trump's apartment. And he's a total wise guy. He's a total wise guy. And, he said to me,
a mob guy.
Yeah, he said to me, I always used Roy as the go-between with Donald. Roy Cohn was the guy who set us up. So this is the relationships that flowed through. The FBI did an affidavit saying that the heads of the commission, the heads of the 5 crime families, would meet in Roy Cohn's office because the government couldn't eavesdrop. It was a lawyer-client relationship. That's what they did.
And you're talking here about the 5 families in New York, but of course, Donald Trump's signature developments occurred in Atlantic City, where, as I recall, the Philadelphia mob was in charge of whatever happened in Atlantic City. Did you talk about his relationship there in Atlantic City?
Yeah, well, no question. I mean, Nicky Scarfo, that's the bloodiest crime family in the history of the United States. It's undervalued because it wasn't based in New York. It didn't get the coverage, But they controlled Local 54, which was the hotel workers union. And this is not me talking. This is a finding in federal court that Nicky Scarfo controlled the hotel workers union, and when they would strike all the casinos in Atlantic City, they wouldn't strike Donald. When he first goes down there into Atlantic City to acquire his first parcels, he buys them at a premium, overpays from underbosses of the Nicky Scarfo crime family. He has a relationship with these guys throughout the early days of his time down there, and it was really a pretty remarkable set of deals that he did. Now you had Mike Matthews was the mayor of Atlantic City, who was totally proven in court, went to jail, totally owned by the Nicky Scarfo crime family, and he was Donald's #1 ally. They were feeding him money, contributions, legal contributions, but they were feeding Matthews money. And that's just one part of this intricate relationship that gave birth to Donald's casino empire in Atlantic City.
Can you talk about this casino empire and what it meant? You actually, unlike most people in this country, got to see Donald Trump's tax records?
Yeah, I did.
How did you get to?
Well, they were part of the record of the Casino Control Commission in the 70s. He would have to submit his tax returns for the first casino that he did down there, at least, Trump Plaza. I mean, one of the great ironies is that his second casino, Trump Castle, was actually built by the Hiltons. And the Hilton family out of Chicago was denied a license by the Casino Control Commission, which was all done to benefit Donald. Donald then gets Trump Castle, and the rationale for denying it, which is what they stated in their decision, was that that the Hilton family was represented by a mob lawyer out of Chicago. Here he's got Roy Cohn, and that's no bar at all. That's no bar at all. And so the irony of it, that's how he got his second casino. And so the casino empire there, what's so interesting to me is, when we had the Nevada primary, he was always at the Trump Hotel down in Las Vegas. But that's only a hotel. There's no casino there, right? Why is there no casino there? His partner in it, Phil Ruffin, already owns a different casino, so he can qualify for a license. But they build a hotel without a casino in the heart of Las Vegas. Because, my only conclusion is that he couldn't get a license in Nevada. The guy might be president of the United States, but here they have this hotel without a casino in the heart of Vegas, right? I had, when my book came out, I started getting visited by these state troopers from Missouri because he had applied for a riverboat casino license in Missouri, and these guys were so thorough. They came and they met me in my house in Ocean City, New Jersey. We call it the house Trump bought with the book advance, and then they would meet me in my house and at the Village. My office at the Village Voice. They'd go through all my. They came back and forth. They denied him. They were about to deny him, I should say, a riverboat license in Missouri. You realize he's not gotten a casino license since he got one for the Taj. He had the DGE, the Division of Gaming Enforcement, and the Casino Control Commission in New Jersey fixed. He had it was rigged for Donald. I don't think there's any question in my mind about that. And what wouldn't be? It's a company town. The only thing in it is casinos. He owned 4 of them. He was only illegally allowed to own 3 of them. So when he bought the 4th one, that just became a hotel. And, they closed down the casino in it and just ran it as a hotel. But to me, there's no other explanation that I can find as to why he does not have a casino in his hotel in Las Vegas, other than he couldn't go through the licensing procedure. He was given in 2004 some kind of a clearance by the casino regulators there of suitability. But that's just a preliminary step. If you're actually going to get a license, you've got to go through an intensive background. And he withdrew before he was going to be denied in Missouri, and he's never applied for a license in Nevada, where he has a giant hotel. It's kind of ironic to me that a guy who wants to be president of the United States is afraid to go through a gaming commission licensing procedure.
Wayne Barrett, Donald Trump offered you an apartment, the man who's dogged him for decades?
Well, that was very early. I hadn't started dogging him yet. That was to induce me not to dog him. When I started out on the trail of the Hyatt, I filed a Freedom of Information request with both the state and the city. And I was at the State Urban Development Corporation offices reading all the files, which was a table full of documents related to the Hyatt. And I was alone in a conference room, and the phone starts ringing in the conference room. I don't know whether to pick up or not. I finally pick up. Wayne, this is Donald. I understand you're going to write a story about me. I never met the guy in my life at that point. It was like we were old friends. And so I met with him early in the reporting process. I always use this with journalism students as an example of what not to do. If you're circling a subject, you don't want to go face to face with them, because you never know whether you're going to get a second shot. You don't want to go face to face with them until you've got all of your ducks in a row. But because he interrupted very early the reporting process, I met with him before I really had many of the ducks in a row, and I could only ask softball questions. He loved me then. It was Ivana was walking around the apartment. It was on a Saturday or a Sunday. I know it was weekend. And Ivana's walking around the apartment. It's on Fifth Avenue, but it's long before Trump Tower. And, so in the midst of that, I had not told him that I lived in Ocean Hill, Brownsville, which was then the poorest community in the city of New York. It would be unfathomable to him that I lived there by choice, because I wanted to live there. So he said to me, Wayne, you don't have to live in Brownsville. I have plenty of apartments. And so then at another time, it was not at that first interview, but sometime subsequent to that, he started talking to me about how he had broken this other journalist by suing him and driving him into bankruptcy. So it was the carrot and the stick, and they were both jokes.
Wayne Barrett, investigative reporter who worked with the Village Voice for 37 years. Wayne's 1991 biography of Trump has just been republished as an ebook. The title, Trump, the Greatest Show on Earth, The Deals, the Downfall, the Reinvention. We'll be back with him in a minute.